The Galactic Council chamber was a cathedral of power, an immense structure orbiting the gas giant Thalkuan, where the representatives of 47 sapient species debated the fate of the galaxy. Light refracted from crystalline walls, bathing the chamber in an ever-shifting aurora. On this day, that light would shine on something the galaxy had never seen before. At the center, the council's circular floor descended in tiers, each species occupying their respective platforms. The air hummed with the low vibrations of translators. The smell of ozone and fear was almost tangible. At the lowest tier stood Ambassador Selin Graves, humanity's representative. Her posture was calm, her uniform simple. No gleaming armor, no psychic enhancements. Just a human breathing steadily. Around her, creatures from across the stars whispered in 1,000 tongues. Today's hearing was not routine. Humanity stood accused of committing an atrocity on a council-protected world. Beginning, the accusation. Councillor Zartak of the Vrothi Dominion slammed his claw against the speaking pedestal. His carapace glistened under the light, voice crackling through the chamber's translation grid. You call yourselves civilized, yet your kind wiped out an entire Vrothi war hatchery on D'Kon VII. 40,000 of our young dead. And you dare stand before us unshaken. Selin didn't flinch. We warned you to withdraw, she said simply. You ignored the message. Zartak's mandibles clattered in rage. A warning. You sent 3 sentences through a subspace relay. You demanded we evacuate our own colony. Who do you think you are, human? A murmur rippled through the chamber. Other representatives leaned forward, some curious, some hostile. The Vrothi were one of the founding races of the Council, predatory arthropods who ruled over hundreds of systems. Humans, by comparison, were newcomers. Barely a century into spacefaring civilization. Councillor Zether of the Arendari Confederacy, a being of shifting blue plasma contained in a crystalline exoshell, spoke next. Ambassador Graves, it said with a flickering hum, these are serious accusations. The destruction of an entire hatchery could constitute a Class A war crime. Selin clasped her hands behind her back. Humanity defends itself. Always. Evidence. The chamber dimmed as holodisplays activated. Footage from D'Kon VII filled the space. Vrothi hatcheries, domed structures dotting a barren wasteland. Then, orbital footage from a human destroyer. HSS Valiant. A single kinetic lance fired. The impact was silent on the video. But the devastation spoke louder than any sound could. One shot, one strike, and the entire valley turned to glass. Gasps echoed from the council tiers. The Vrothi shriek. Genocide! You exterminated the next generation of our people. Selin looked up, her face unreadable. Those hatcheries were not civilian. They contained mature warrior forms. They were launching strikes against the Terran colony on Greaves Reach. Councillor Zether's crystalline shell pulsed. Even if true, you could have used non-lethal deterrence. A low laugh escaped Selin's lips. With all due respect, Counselor, humanity doesn't do non-lethal when we're defending our young. The translator grid buzzed with overlapping chatter. Confusion, alarm, disbelief. Middle. The Predator trigger. Councillor Threx of the Volarii Collective, a species of telepathic cephalopods, spoke next. His tendrils twitched nervously. Ambassador Graves. There are whispers, disturbing ones, that humanity possesses something called a predator trigger. Explain this. The chamber went still. Every representative turned their gaze toward Selin. She tilted her head slightly. You've heard of it. Threx's tendrils coiled tightly. Rumors only. They say it's a psychological phenomenon. That under threat, your species enters a state of what? Selin asked softly. Threx hesitated. Of apex aggression. You lose all inhibition. No fear. No self-preservation. Just destruction. Selin's eyes narrowed. Not lose. We choose. The murmurs became a storm. Species who had fought wars for centuries now leaned back, instinctively wary of a mammal that smiled when speaking of violence. Council Chair Morith of the Thalkari, an ancient reptilian whose lineage predated the council itself, banged his scepter. Order! The room fell silent. Ambassador Graves, he hissed. If this predator trigger exists, it represents a violation of the council's peace code. Biological or psychological weapons are forbidden. Selin's gaze swept the chamber. We didn't build it. We were born with it. Morith's slitted eyes narrowed. Then perhaps your species is too dangerous to remain within civilized space. The breaking point. At those words, something in the air changed. Every human instinct, honed by 1,000,000 years of predation, survival, and defiance, seemed to awaken within Selin's still form. Her pulse quickened. The room felt smaller, darker. Every sound sharper. But she didn't move. Instead, she looked up, meeting Morith's cold reptilian eyes. Chair Morith, she said calmly, if you wish to understand what you're threatening to banish, allow me to show you. Before anyone could respond, she gestured toward the holoconsole before her. Play soul defense footage. Event 0-9-14. Authorization. Graves Theta. The council systems hesitated, flashing warnings. The file was classified at the highest level. Then it played. The revelation. The holo expanded to show Earth. Orbiting the blue world was a massive alien fleet, the Krytal Swarm, an extragalactic invader that had wiped out entire civilizations centuries ago. The Council had long thought them extinct. The footage came from human ships. Smaller, fewer, outnumbered 100 to 1. Selin's voice, recorded during the event, echoed through the chamber. To all Terran defense forces, we are surrounded. The swarm demands surrender. You know what that means. You know what to do. There was silence. Then the human fleet powered down their shields. Counselors gasped. They deactivated defenses. Madness. The video continued. The swarm, confused, moved closer, sensing weakness. Then it happened. The human ships moved. Not in retreat, not in defense, but in coordinated suicidal aggression. Every vessel accelerated to ramming speed, engines flaring white-hot. Missiles detonated not outward, but inward, turning the debris field into a storm of molten shrapnel. Every explosion, every detonation was precise, designed to maximize enemy casualties. It was no battle. It was a slaughter. The swarm fleet collapsed under the human onslaught, and when it ended, only wreckage remained. Humanity lost 87% of its forces. But Earth lived. The footage ended. Silence blanketed the chamber. The Council reacts. Morith spoke first, voice shaking despite himself. You annihilated an entire armada by destroying yourselves. Selin nodded once. We triggered. Threx's tendrils trembled. How can any species choose to die rather than lose? Selin turned to him. We don't choose death. We choose victory, no matter the cost. Zether's crystalline shell flickered erratically. That is madness. Maybe, Selin said softly, but it's our kind of madness. The warning. Morith leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. You expect the Council to tolerate such instability. You call this civilization. Selin took a slow breath. Chair Morith, let me tell you something about humanity. She stepped closer to the center platform, voice steady, every word echoing through the chamber. We were never supposed to exist. Our planet tried to kill us 1,000 times over. Ice ages, plagues, predators. We adapted. We learned. We endured. And when the galaxy came knocking, we looked into the void and smiled back. You call it instability. We call it instinct. Her gaze swept across the tiers, meeting every alien eye. The predator trigger isn't a weapon. It's a truth. We don't fight because we want to. We fight because when someone threatens what's ours, the fear disappears. The pain disappears. There is only one thought left. Make them stop. Silence. Even the translator grid hesitated, as though afraid to speak her words aloud. Middle climax, the test. Zartak of the Vrothi spat venom onto the floor. Empty words. Your truth doesn't justify extermination. He raised one claw and slammed a code into his console. The chamber lights flickered. An emergency holo flared to life. Live footage from orbit. Vrothi warships, hundreds of them, surrounded the Terran embassy station above Thalkuan. The chamber erupted in chaos. Morith roared. What are you doing, Zartak? The Vrothi's mandibles clicked in fury. If humanity's so dangerous, let's see what happens when they're cornered. The trigger. Selin looked up at the live feed. Her hand trembled just once. Then she pressed 2 fingers to her earpiece. Station Commander Hale. You see it? A gruff voice crackled through the comms. Yes, ma'am. Orders. Selin closed her eyes. Trigger protocol, condition red. The words rippled through the station's crew like an electric charge. On the screen, the Terran ship's power down. Again. Every weapon went cold. The Vrothi fleet closed in, confident, predatory. Then, just as before, the humans moved. Tiny escort ships darted forward in perfect formation, weaving between capital ships with impossible precision. Then came the pulse, invisible but deadly. The humans detonated a series of fusion cores in precise mathematical intervals. The resulting shockwave tore through the Vrothi formation like a knife. Their shields failed. Their own munitions detonated. In seconds, half the fleet was gone. The remaining Vrothi tried to retreat, but the human ships pursued, silent and relentless, like wolves tearing into prey. Then the feed went dark. The aftermath. When the holo ended, no one spoke. Zartak stared at the floor, his claws trembling. You would destroy entire fleets just to prove a point. Selin's voice was calm. We didn't start that fight. Morith's scales rippled uneasily. And yet you ended it, with surgical brutality. Selin met his gaze. You wanted to see the predator trigger, Chair Morith. Now you know why we never wanted to use it again. She paused, her voice softening. Humanity doesn't seek war. But we don't fear it either. That's the difference. Ending the verdict. The council remained in stunned silence for several long minutes. Then slowly Chair Morith spoke. The council finds no evidence of intentional genocide. The Vrothi provoked the attack. The matter is closed. Zartak erupted. Closed. They destroyed our fleet. Morith's tail lashed the floor. Enough. You provoked a species whose capabilities you do not understand. Let this serve as a warning to all of us. Selin nodded respectfully. On behalf of humanity, we accept your decision. As the chamber adjourned, counselors whispered among themselves. Fear, awe, and reluctant respect mingling in every tongue. Zephyr approached Selin privately, its crystalline form flickering. Ambassador, You realize what this means. The Council will never see your species the same way again. Selin gave a faint smile. Good. Zephyr tilted its head. You've shown them what humans become when provoked. Selin turned to the viewing window, where the distant light of Earth shimmered across the stars. No, she said quietly. I showed them what happens when we stop pretending we're not predators. Prologue. Weeks later, in the shadows beyond the Council's archives, Chair Morath reviewed the classified footage again. He watched the human ships, small and fragile, unleash annihilation against forces far greater than themselves. When the recording ended, he sat in silence. Finally, he whispered to his aide. Prepare a directive. Effective immediately. All Council fleets encountering humans are to operate under diplomatic clearance only. No aggression. No provocations. Sir, the aide asked. Do you fear them? Morath's yellow eyes glowed in the dim light. No, he said softly. I fear what happens when they stop fearing us.